Okay, so we are back for another transfer roundup. This one's actually going to be a lot shorter than the previous ones because, darn, we've actually kept up to date with this. It's a miracle, isn't it? Anyway, we are going to get straight into this. We are going to go over, first of all, one transfer in the Oceanic or Australian region of things. This is the Korean DPS Elva leaving Dire Wolves and will no longer be assigned. Hopefully, he can find a team pretty soon. Again, Australia, it's going to be starting up pretty soon. And teams are going to be working their way into what they want. The other two regions are purely Korea and North America. There are no other regions in this transfer roundup. It is a short one. It's good. We don't want to have a big backlog and then me doing flippin' rap god to try and get through it all. So, North America, let's get this done. First of all, we have two American support players leaving Hour Zero. Or is it 0 Hour? I believe it's 0 Hour, right? No, it's Hour Zero. I got it right in the end. So these are leaving Hour Zero. This is Slugo and Tensor. I wish them all the best. I was going to try and avoid saying that in this video, but then realised I can't for some reason in the transfer roundup as they try and find new teams. Good luck to them in the future. 3 coming into Susano. This is the support Angel 1C. Angelic. Yeah, I got there in the end. All of these are American, by the way. 2 tanks. Infected, spelled in a very interesting way, and then Firewolf, all coming into Susano after being unassigned. They should have a nice future there. Next up, we have a very interesting story. So this is a Bay Alliance. Yes, a Bay Alliance is a North American organization, but they bought out Raspberry Racers in the EU. This has now changed. They've moved back to North America, and they are going to have a North American roster. Completely American, apart from one who's Canadian. I'll point out the Canadian in a minute. But first of all, their coach is going to be Salt Shaker, coming in from Odyssey. They're also going to have the manager NVIDIA. All of these players were unassigned. So 2 supports, Tensor, who's just come in from obviously Hour Zero, and Moza. Then the lone Canadian tank, Farnfer. Then we have 2 American tanks, Cowman 711 and Matt Merck. And then 2 American DPS players, Aiko and Petal. All coming into a Bay Alliance who are going to compete in North America for the 2021 season of Contenders. It explains the re-emergence of Raspberry Racers in the EU. And I think that's good, because I like to see Raspberry Racers back in the EU. And a Bay Alliance, I don't really know why you'd kind of go into the EU region. If there's a North American region and you're a North American org, I don't know why you'd do that. Anyway, moving on. The American support player Archer has decided to retire from Overwatch after being unassigned. I hope he can find happiness in whatever he does next, whether that's moving on to school or moving into work or etc, etc. We don't need to go into that. I don't want to go into that, but this is what happens when I babble on about things. Support Pascal. The American support, he is leaving Delhi Destroyer, so will no longer be assigned. I wish him good luck in finding a new team. Also, we have more outs at Hour Zero. This is them letting go of 2 tank players, Salty and Vita. I wish them all the best in finding new teams. Then we see that the American DPS player Freedom, who was previously unassigned, he will be retiring from Overwatch as well. Unfortunate, but again, we tend to see quite a bit of this going on, so again, it's not too much of a surprise. Then we see the Canadian tank player Icy leaving Drifters. He will no longer be assigned, and hopefully he can find a new team in due course. And then the Canadian manager Urzo will be leaving Hour Zero and will no longer be assigned. Big changes at Hour Zero in this one. But now we move over to Korea. Korea is super interesting in this one because we've got the emergence of a rebranded team and some interesting tank players coming into another team as well. So, first of all, the Korean support player Revenge will be retiring from Overwatch. He was most recently, I believe, at the Runaway and featured in the Korean Season 2 finals. It did kind of got out-zenned by Aztac, who's now in the Overwatch League. Revenge is ex-Overwatch League, and it looks like his time with Overwatch is over, and good luck to him in the future. Now we have the emergence of a team you may not recognize. This is called Intro Wave. Intro Wave is the rebranded GC Busan Wave. So, yeah, no more GC Busan, no more GC Busan Wave. It's now called Intro Wave. And they are coming out with an entirely new roster. First of all, they are going to sign the Malaysian coach, Blue Ice. He's going to come into Intro Wave alongside Korean manager Wings and Korean coach, I just merged coach and manager, Korean coach Hyun Sung. So they are going to be the staff going in for Intro Wave. Then we have, this is really interesting. This is something we haven't seen in Korea before, and this is a mixed Chinese-Korean roster. I think this is Intro Wave trying to play on the power of China right now in the Asian region. It'd be interesting to see how this works in Korean Contenders. So they're going to bring in the Chinese DPS, the Chinese support player Haruhi. They're going to bring in 2 Korean tanks, Sphinx and Pressure. And then they're going to bring in the Korean DPS player Snake. They're all coming in from being unassigned. And then they're going to bring in 2 players from First Fabulous Fighter in China. This is the Chinese support player Sleep and the Chinese DPS player Night God. So it is a fully mixed roster for Intro Wave. One of the first fully mixed rosters we've seen in Korean Contenders. Super interesting, and I'm gonna keep a very close eye on how that works out in Korean Contenders, because there's a lot of talent in China right now, and it's clear that Intro Wave have seen that and are going to try and work off of it. But talking of China, it can go 2 ways. So Team CCKR, which i.e. is the Korean division of Team CC that has just been set up. Team CC are a big influence in Chinese contenders, and now they want to be a big influence in Korean contenders as well. Imagine if we had our first team that win Chinese contenders and Korean contenders at the same time. That would be massive. But they have brought in, first of all, someone, the main tank that was turning out for Gen.G last year, coming into Team CC Korea. That's interesting. Very big pickup for Team CC Korea. And they've also, I'm going to skip ahead of the other moves, because another person they picked up is Huyol. And again, Huyol has a lot of history in Korean contenders, and obviously the Overwatch League previously with London Spitfire. And someone in Huyol as the tank line for Team CC Korea, that's pretty stacked. That's pretty stacked. And I think that builds up some hype around Team CC Korea. There are a lot of different influences, I'll get there in a minute, coming into Korea this season. You've got Team CC, who were born in China. You've still got the old hats, Runaway, Gen.G, people like that, Element Mystic and no more. But we also have an NA influence. We have seen the last of the NA Academy teams leave the NA Contenders region. Yes, we are talking about the Uprising Academy. They are transferring to Korea. Very much like what happened to the Fusion University, who ended up becoming T1. And although they will be maintaining the Uprising Academy branding, this is very interesting, and it's a clear indication of the direction in which Uprising want to go, and it explains the signing of Gabe Yulsi to the Uprising Academy roster. So they've also brought in Korean coach Garinsha, the Korean support Fixer, the Korean tank Zbag, I would imagine to go alongside Gabe Yulsi, and then 3 Korean DPS players, Stella, Finale, and Victoria. Interesting, and I'm very interested to see how Uprising Academy do. Spoiler alert, it isn't going to be that well. So it's definitely a move out of the blue from Uprising Academy, and it's I can understand it, and it's a clear indication of the future of the Boston Uprising. Very Korean, obviously, and Laurie is going to be a very big part of that, I think. They want to base their efforts around Korean talent in the future, and that's why they're basing their academy in Korea. Very interesting, and yeah, that's something to keep an eye on, because in the future, if we do maintain this sort of regional format, could we see the Uprising going to the East region, which is something wasn't out of the realms of possibility this year. So Uprising are kind of transitioning to a more Korean base, and it'll be interesting to see how that works out. That's it for this one, though. It does mean that, but also, by the way, the last Western Academy is the British Hurricane. So gone are the days of the Eternal Academy and Envious and the NYXL, or what were they called? NYXL 2? I can't remember what the NYXL Academy. XL2. Optic back in the day. NRG also existed back in the day as well. And all sorts of different academies, and now they're all gone. There are no more academies in NA Contenders, and the last remaining Western one is in the EU with British Hurricane, that has extremely tight links with the London Spitfire, more than a tighter academy to an Overwatch League team than we've ever seen. And yeah, very interesting. We will keep an eye on what happens with the Uprising Academy alongside Team CC and Intro Wave and all of that going into this new Contender season, but I will be leaving it here for this one. All the socials are linked in the video description as per usual for Illusion and myself. But for now, thank you guys so much for this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.